the cost of their mental health and the anxiety that it causes in the long run, that they really actually feel more dramatically. So then we move on to climate change. We know that flooding is already a problem. So what impact is our changing climate going to have on that risk? And what we expect to see an increase in average temperatures of 1.7 degrees by 2050, and this is likely to result in more intense rainfall events. We also expect to see wetter winters with an expected 20% increase in precipitation, and we've already observed a sea level rise of 3.5 centimeters for the 1993 to the 2006 period. And even despite some uncertainties, there's a clear risk that flooding arising from the projected change in climate may become more frequent and severe in the future. If we then look at the whole of government approach to managing flood risk, and sure some, but not all, will be familiar with the National Sea Plan Programme, which was completed in 2018. So as part of that programme, the flood risk was assessed in the 300 communities across Ireland that were deemed to be at significant risk of flooding. And this identified where protection could be achieved and resulted in the production of 40,000 maps to help inform decision making. And the proposed measures that were documented in 29 flood risk management plans, which I said were published in 2018. They're available to view on floodinfo.ie. And those plans cover other actions, including prevention and preparedness, which have responsibility for not just the OPW, but local authorities and other agencies. And this whole of government approach is evident the fact that 6,500 properties have been protected by schemes put forward by others under the Minor Works Programme. So local authority staff may be familiar with that Minor Works Programme. So what does this, whole of government, plans, what do they say about nature-based catchment management solutions? So all of the plans have a specific measure, and this is it. It's in each of the 29 plans, and it states that the OPW will work with the EPA, local authorities, and other agencies during the project level assessments of physical work. So that's the project level means, the progression of flood relief schemes, and then also more broadly at a catchment level, to identify where possible measures that will have benefits for both WFD and flood risk management objectives, such as natural water retention measures, and also provide diversity potentially other objectives, including pilot studies and applications where possible. I know that measure is an absolute mouthful, so sorry about that. So nature-based catchment management solutions, what are they? Well, they aim to protect water resources and reduce flood risk by restoring or maintaining ecosystems and the natural features, characteristics of water bodies, and they use natural means and processes. This graphic is from the Environment Agency's excellent work with natural processes evidence directory, and if anyone is interested in delving, into more detail of the evidence around all of these types of measures, I highly recommend that document. And you can see, there are a wide range of different types of measures that can be applied across catchments. Just looking at a couple here, if we look at into the upper catchments, you have measures like leaky barriers. They're sometimes termed large woody debris dams, where large, as the name says, large woody debris is used to, block up water courses and slow the flow rates. And you also have measures like headwater drainage management. And then as you move down the catchment into the mid catchment, you see things like wetland restoration, offland storage areas, and then into the lower reaches, you have coastal management measures such as beach nourishment. So what do we know now about nature-based catchment management solutions? And what's the OPW's view of them? And well, our view is that they have been demonstrated to be effective for small catchments and frequent flood events. And that doesn't mean they're not effective for larger catchments, it's just that the evidence isn't as strong in those cases. And when we're talking about small catchments and frequent flood events, we mean catchments in and around the 10 kilometre squared size, and frequent flood events are floods that have a chance of happening of 1 in 10 in any given year. And we also know now that they offer a wide range of multiple benefits beyond flood management, including water quality improvement, habitat creation, climate change adaptation, and mitigation. So in Ireland, we have 3 strands for implementing nature-based catchment management solutions. The first is through research and pilot projects. The second is interdepartmental and agency cooperation. And then lastly, it's through our Feasibility schemes program. On the research and pilot projects, the main body of work that's been carried out is a project called Slow Waters. And that's been carried out. It's a 4-year project. It's a €500,000 budget. And it commenced in February 2019. And it is being carried out through the EPA research program. And the Slow Water project, the objective is to assess the benefits of natural water retention measures. You'll hear me interchange between those terms, nature-based catchment management solutions and natural water retention measures, and I'll explain why a little bit later. So the objective of this project is to assess the benefits of these type of measures for agricultural catchments in Ireland, and then to evaluate the practicalities of uptake on Irish farms. And that's using demonstration sites, one in Cork and one in Wexford. And the project link and Twitter handle is there. And there's a huge amount of project partners. And it's been led by Trinity College Dublin, but there's also partners in UCC. And we're drawing on some experts who have long-standing experience in implementing these types of measures and researching them. In the Newcastle University and James Hutton Institute and Chagas are also on the project steering group. So beyond the pilot and research projects, the next strand is through, as I said, interdepartmental and agency cooperation. So there was a working group under the National Technical Implementation Group for the river-based management plans for these types of measures. We met between March 2019 and September 2020. And we had representatives from 14 different departments and agencies. So, a huge coming together of different perspectives on this topic. And the outcome of that working group was, a range of recommendations focused at different levels of implementation from the national level through the project level and then onto the local project approach. So at the national level, the recommendation was that we would utilize or enhance the existing policies and measures to achieve maximum multiple benefits from natural water retention measures within existing funding mechanisms. This measure came about because as we met and as those 14 groups talked, we discussed what these types of measures were. We found that there was some policy or some objective across all the organizations aimed at this, but there wasn't really the cooperation there so that we could achieve the multiple benefits by cooperation. Then as we move down to the catchment level, the recommendation was to conduct a pilot study to assess the feasibility and cost benefit of implementing these measures at the catchment scale, and then to recommend strategies for their implementation. And then we're going to use the learnings from that to roll out implementation nationally. And the recommendation then for the local level is to prepare some simple best practice guidance for Ireland to help community and groups to undertake local scale projects. And then finally, as I said, just to might explain the terminology. So when that group started, we were called the Natural Water Retention Measures Work Group, and it was felt that that terminology, what it was at the time used at the European level, wasn't applicable to Ireland, and it didn't capture the full range of measures that fall into the category, and also it didn't align with the kind of nature-based solution terminology that was used in other sectors, particularly on the climate change side. So we made a decision to promote the term nature-based catchment management solutions for usage in Ireland. So the third strand then is for implementing these measures through our flood relief schemes. We have 118 potentially viable flood relief schemes that were identified in the plans. And as of 2019, we included in the brief specific requirements for nature-based catchment management solutions. The first requirement was to produce opportunity maps and to identify in catchments areas that had potential for runoff reduction, floodplain storage, or sediment management. and then to look at, the full range of measures targeted at those main types of actions. And then after the mapping stage, we've asked that a feasibility assessment for implementing these types of measures should be carried out. And that assessment should look at the potential for these measures to reduce flood risk, not just in the scheme area, but also in the catchment upstream, and to look at how we might mitigate flood risk impacts of climate change using these measures, and also how we might use them to mitigate the environmental impacts that a proposed flood relief scheme might have. And then finally, we also want to see what objectives other than flood risk management, including water quality, habitat creation, climate regulation, and provision of amenity, that you might gain from implementing these types of measures. So when the feasibility assessment is completed as part of the schemes, we say that we want them to be implemented if they are shown to be feasible, and to reduce flood risk in the scheme area. We want them to be implemented as part of the scheme. And we've also made a requirement that they don't have to meet the full standard of protection of the scheme. So I guess in summary, flooding is a significant and increasing risk in Ireland. We view nature-based catchment management solutions as an additional tool to manage the risk. The flood risk management plans that were published in 2018 have a strategic objective with respect to these types of measures. And then that measure is being implemented through research and the interdepartmental cooperation. And then they will be implemented as part of flood relief schemes.